Today, we are flipping the script. Luke Kemeys from Keep the Change is joining us to unpack his financial plan. From risky assets and societal norms to mowing lawns and the big questions around home ownership. Is it slowing you down? We dive into what really matters when it comes to money.
We're back in your life, and today we're joined by Luke Kemeys, Keep the Change, Next Advisory, to talk about his financial plan. Luke, let me ask you, what's your plan, mate?
Yeah, I don't really know if I've got one, which might just have lost half of my audience when I find that out. But I guess what I've been doing is trying to stack to give myself options. Now, probably where I'm a little bit different to other people is that I am quite entrepreneurial or have different ventures that I'll see, and I want to be able to move at pace. So as an example, I recently built a podcast studio, and it's about 40 grand by the time through doing all of that. And a long time ago, like Luke would not have the cash to be able to do that, and the solution would be finance. And now part of me is like, finance probably still is the solution because the interest is tax deductible, got the use of the money in the meantime. But I just want to pull the trigger and go, right, I've got 50 grand sitting there, allocate 40, bang, like let's get this done and get it moving. I start looking at a loan application, I'm like, that's just way too hard, too much admin. I don't want to do this. And that's kind of how I approach things. If I want to have buckets of cash or resource that I can then allocate towards things that I'm doing. So I don't know exactly what that then ends up being deployed into. But at the moment, I'm mortgage free, so I rent. So it's a fancy way of saying that you're a renter. Yeah, people are like, are you just renting? So I'm not paying down a mortgage, so I'm not incentivized to, okay, let's clear some of that debt. So I basically get paid, pay my tax, and then just deploy it into a heap of random different risky assets.
Okay, we will get into that, but I'm keen to start, Luke. I talk to so many people, like there's this real weird thing with owning a home, right? For some reason, you're more proud of yourself, your parents are more proud of it if you own a home, and for some reason, society almost like looks down on you a little bit if you rent for whatever reason, despite your financial position. How have you resisted all of that social pressure?
Yeah, I guess I've gone house sitting for a time of my life. I've lived in a number of different flats. So when people talk about, you want a sense of security and in the same space, I think that's, again, like marketing, a personal choice. People have brought into that. Where are all those people that are leaving for Australia? Right now, where's that argument gone? They're like, nah, I'm going to take my whole life and move to Australia. Tens of thousands of people. They should be like, oh no, hold on. Not long ago, you were saying like, I want to buy a house and live in the same location. Statistically, I think people move, is it every 7 years or something like that? Also, the average first home buyer is 36. I think you guys, might be 37. You probably have the correct data on that. So I think the societal pressure is just noise and bullshit that we choose to buy into. And I just kind of haven't really got too far into it. But also, I think your parents play a big part of that. So you've got to try and articulate to them where it is that you're going, because it worked really well for them, right? So if you're not doing it, it's sort of like, well, you're missing out on what you could have. And then also your partner as well. And like we've had conversations where, her friends might be buying and stuff, and it's like, well, what are we doing? And it sort of forces you to have those. So you end up building deeper connections or understanding from your family and your partner. But then I think you you have that understanding, but they probably still just like, they've given up on that person. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's part to do with like, rent together, then you buy a house together, then you get a dog together, get married, have kids, whatever. Maybe it's like some sort of order of things, and it's there's I think a lot of human psychology elements to it.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well with the home ownership, it's again, when people are saying to us like, I want to buy my first home, it has to be in this area, it has to be this. I'm like, it doesn't have to be in that area, it doesn't have to be that. You could just go buy an investment property and keep renting in the area you want to live in for like 1/10 of the price. And I get so many different pushbacks, whether it's like, I can't be bothered with a flat inspection. I'm like, you show me a property manager who is on time and shows up every month to do a flat. They just don't exist. Yeah,
I think my current lease has ended and my property manager hasn't even got in touch with me.
This is the thing.
I'm like, should I just not pay rent? What's going to happen? But also, I guess at the moment as well in Auckland where we're renting, probably wouldn't buy that place, but we get to taste it. And I've really liked and don't have kids as well. So, I don't own anything. I'm part of the World Economic Forum and I own nothing and I'm happy. It's a bit of a joke, calm down people. But like I don't have contents insurance because I don't have any.
Yeah.
I don't have any contents. And if my stuff that I do have gets stolen or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'll just buy it again. So my life's very different to other people's. And so that's where I think people have to be careful listening to people on the internet being like, this is the one way, this is what you should do, because everybody's content, and it's, you guys building plans for people, until you start getting all the information from them, you don't really understand what's fit for purpose for them.
Yeah. What about when it comes to, like, say, like you're running a business, you're growing a brand, is there a deliberate component that you, like, say, if you have a house and you have a mortgage and you've got a big cost, it might potentially from slowing you down from reinvesting, being stressed about these big assets that you've got to fund. Does that come into the decision making at all?
Definitely. I do think part of me, deep down, that I have I don't like the feeling of mortgage and that large payment. And, people will talk about rent being wasted money. I don't see it like that. I'm like, I get to I really like to live where I want to live. And so I get to experience that. So I see a lot of value in spending money on rent to live somewhere that I couldn't if I maybe had to buy that place. Or if I had to live somewhere I didn't like, it would make me feel really shit. So I don't find anything wrong with paying rent. Whereas when I look at paying a mortgage, I'm like, man, and interest, I'm like, that is just literally adding to the bank's profits. It's yuck. What could I be doing with that cash? Could I be deploying it elsewhere? So my perception of it's probably completely different to other people's. And that's something like I'll need to work through when I do decide to buy a property, and do that with my partner as well. But I know that my time will come, but also I'm a very time managed person. So then when I start looking at like lawns, fixing roofs, all of that stuff that goes with it, like I think about all that stuff and I'm like, that's a very bad use of my time. Like, should I be recording a podcast to help people get better at their finances, or should I be mowing the lawns? Like, should I be trying to Google how to fix the broken thing and do that and getting it wrong and going to Bunnings and driving 40 minutes there and coming back? Or should
and then
I
paying for someone to do it anyway?
Yeah. you know what I mean? So I look at these things.
What you did.
Yeah.
I look at these things probably a lot differently to how other people do. But I know that my time will come eventually, and it could be when we have kids or whatever. And I'll have to navigate that too.
Yeah, you're thinking about the complete opposite way, because the common way to think about it is if you're paying rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage off while you're going, I don't want to be paying all this interest to the bank. I want more flexibility. And I think a flawed concept, right? Rent vesting. I think about rent vesting probably more than I've ever thought about it, where if you go, you can live in a house, or you can own it, or you can rent it. And if you rent it and you're smart with your money and you deploy that capital into investment properties or shares, or there's a big argument you can potentially be better off over the long term than having that huge debt over you.
Yeah, 100%.
I think as well, like it's not, okay, what's going to be the better, and I think that's what we all get obsessed with, is what's the mathematical calculation that makes the most sense and shit. And it's like, yeah, but then you didn't factor in that your roof's going to blow out and it's 15 grand or whatever. So
or that you spend 30 minutes a day sitting in traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that used to make me miserable. Even driving in today, like I build my day around not having to do that. But today with some different timings, I'm like sitting there. So then I'm making content whilst driving. I hope that's not illegal. But I'm like constantly looking, how can I make my time more efficient?
I'd pull over, do the thing, start driving again. Yeah.
Well, I take 10 minutes to explain anything. So I take a long time to get into the city. And can't even remember where I was going with that now. But I think like money is a tool that we get to use to decide, okay, what brings me enjoyment and fulfillment? And, I could probably, a younger Luke could have only dreamed of, living in an apartment and looking at the water and having a 180 view and stuff like that. And now I'm like, man, I can make that happen. That's epic. Like you once said that you dreamed to do that, spend the money and go and find out what it's like. And, that's very different to kind of, all right, like, no, you should, put it all aside and it should be going into paying down a mortgage or whatever. And I think everybody's got to figure out their own race with that. But caveat with mine is that I'm in a position to do that. I think there's people that take a conversation like that and they think like, oh, he's basically saying rent and don't worry about it. You've still got to have your shit sorted and you've got to figure out, okay, what you're going to do longer term.
Yeah. And Mike, I mean, a huge benefit of having a mortgage, right, is it is forced savings. And if you are quite bad with money, like if you rent and do nothing, you're obviously worse off.
Yeah, that's the danger, right? It's the same with KiwiSaver. Like if you gave people access to their KiwiSaver, it'd be an absolute shit show. So yeah.
Great for the economy. It'll all get blitzed, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to switch, Luke, to like your budgeting. So cash flow, income is the key to kind of growing wealth, right? You have to save some money, deploy it. Your first $1,000 was the hardest, then 10, then 100,000. How do you manage your money?
So basically I have everything comes in and I have a monthly spreadsheet, which is basically like what money is coming in each week. And I just keep rolling that forward. I've been doing that for the last 5 years now. And then I have APs set up to various investment providers. I also kick in more voluntary to KiwiSaver than I need to, and could argue that, you know, I know enough to know that it's not that smart and could be allocating that elsewhere. But for me, I want to see how big that snowball gets to at 65. And then I'll stack cash as well. And then I might then deploy that into a certain investment fund or even just have cash sitting there that I can then maybe move quickly with something in the business space or whatever I see that pops up. And the goal was always to try and save 40% of my income that was coming in and basically like carve that straight off. So my first line item in my budget is basically, okay, if that's the income coming in, what's 40% of that? That basically has to be deployed somewhere. And I started doing that from when I was earning bugger all, like a couple of grand a month. And the reason I was doing it is because I knew that I was going to end up, my goal was to try and have a $400,000 income. And I thought, okay, by the time I earn that, I don't want to be, you know, going like, oh, I should be saving 40% of this. I could do it. I'm like, I need to learn it from the start. And look, you know, there's been some lifestyle creep and I don't always do that. But that's how I manage my ins and my outs. And then I'll update it if things are changing. And then every month I then have another tab, and it's basically what assets do I have, what are the values of those, and what debts do I have. And so then I'm able to track back a whole year. Okay, what have I actually put aside? What were my assets at 31 March 2024 versus 2025? And I can go back and see, are you full of shit? Or are you actually, yeah. And, you know, sometimes it's a little bit confronting. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, maybe some of these assets, you know, you always want to blame it on the assets. So they're just not at a good moment in time here. Yeah. But you can see your net worth increasing and see your wealth increasing. And for me, that's been like a really methodical and simple way to kind of hold myself accountable to it.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if you picked up on when Luke talked about saving 40% of his income opposed to just waiting till he got to 400K. In the webinars we do, where we talk about people who earn $1 million a year and they're going backwards, people are floored by that concept, right?
Yeah, and it is quite crazy. I feel like people think we're making it up. We're talking our webinars. We're like, we have people who earn $1 million a year and they go backwards every fortnight when they get paid. It's like they are, not only are they not saving, they're still spending more than they earn. And I genuinely feel like people go, that's bullshit. They're making that up. I promise you, we have these clients.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And as you earn more as well, you have to learn more about yourself. And you know, I went for lunch for my birthday the other day, and I shouted everybody the set menu. Now, partly because A, I could afford to, but B, I'm like, oh, if I'm going to force everyone to do the set menu and maybe they don't want to, then I'm forcing that cost on them. So you know what? I'll pay for it. You guys just pay for your drinks. But that's $990 when I walked out of there. Now, a long time ago, I'd be like, I don't even have
You're mental. Yeah, you're crazy, mate. Yeah.
But even even saying that, it's like, oh shit, you know, people might not even have $990 saved, but the feeling of being able to do that is pretty cool compared to like where you've come from. But I have to balance that of like, okay, how far do you go with that? And even giving the family money and things like that, I'm like, okay, I feel like this is a really smart thing to do and it's really nice and people would like to do that. But then I'll go and read about people that are like, do not do that. You know, that's teaching bad habits and stuff. So then you start getting conflicted. And I think when you don't have money, you just assume that once you have more, everything's easy.
Yeah.
And sure, but like things are easier, I would say, but you then end up having more options, which then create more challenges and you have to learn even more. And it's like, when do you help someone out? When don't you? When do you shout the lounge? The lunches? Even like I'm paying for it, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll have a birthday lunch next year, because if I just set the precedent that way, you know, like,
was it not a good return on investment with the attendees?
Everyone will bring their partners next year, and then it's $2,000.
Yeah. We'll just update contact details after this because I didn't see the invitation come through. But hey, it's fine. Let's move on to so I mean that's really impressive in terms of those skills around what percentage of your income that you're saving, especially the fact that you're a business owner, right? I mean, you could talk as an accountant. When people have more flexibility with their income and dividends and shareholder salaries, it's the potential that it turns into an absolute shit show.
Yeah, 100%. And, like one thing that I have tried to do is try and keep my lifestyle relatively similar to, what it's been like as my income has increased. That's definitely changed. But like, I've got old pants, like the shirt would be, I don't know, like, so I'm not.
Didn't want to say anything.
Yeah. And I've like pressed it so often that the buttons are, so I'm not like a real flashy sort of guy, but then I'll go and buy shit every now and then where it's, extremely excessive to spend that much on a t-shirt or a shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
But I could see how people do it. And also I think what people do is they match their lifestyle to their income, but with leverage. So recently I got an email from somebody talking about how, they can't really afford the things that they have and they're struggling, but they're doing everything they can, and they're going without, but their kids aren't, and they're having to top up 2 rentals. In my mind, I'm sort of like, oh shit, maybe we ditch one of the rentals, or have you asked someone for help? I said, speak to a financial advisor. Like, you've got to still enjoy your life and whatnot. But their answer was basically, no, well, with the way our lives now are, like, we've got to hold on for dear life because we'll probably never be able to get that finance again to get them. And I'm just like, oh, that sounds like such a stressful way to live.
You just imagine the sleep at night,
Yeah.
And it's again with the mortgage side of things. Everyone's like, I'm like, here's the maximum I can get to work on paper. Don't go there.
Yeah.
I'm like, sit down and just figure out, can I actually afford this? Am I going to be able to get to sleep at night? Because if I say to someone, we can get your 1.6 purchase price, they'll spend 1.7 every time.
Yeah. And even Mikey, who I kick around with on that, I said, mate, like, just run me through, what could you borrow with this level of household income and stuff? And he's like, X, Y, Z. And he's like, but don't do it, eh?
Yeah.
And
but it is crazy the stuff we can get to work. And the people, and like, don't get me wrong, it is hard to get money from banks and all that sort of stuff. But like, there are certain instances where you look at the number and you're like, holy shit.
Even talking to a financial coach recently on a smaller scale, they were talking about how, people might go to get car finance or buy now, pay later or whatever. And it's like the way the calculation is worked, like, technically they can afford the repayments, but if anything changes in that budget, like, probably not. But that's not factored into
an
the
interest rate jumps up 1% over here and some costs go up a little bit over here, and all of a sudden, like, we're underwater.
Yeah.
And that's a huge risk at the moment, right? As interest rates start to come down, people start to forget, because we're got very short memories. We start going, 4% on this home loan, I can afford that. And we forget that it'll swing back up at some point. Luke, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, in terms of keeping to your budget, I'm very keen to hear about how you've managed to maintain that lifestyle when you've seen friends start to spend more money on different things. Because for a lot of our clients that we talk to, I'm hearing like, these people are sending their kids to private schools, or these people are going on holidays. So I'm very keen to get your thoughts after this break. So at Lighthouse, we help clients put together financial plans. Luke, with Keep the Change with Next Advisory, you're sending clients to Lighthouse when appropriate to do a plan. Why do you think a financial plan is important?
Well, most people don't know where they're going, why they want to do that, or think about goals. And unless you've got someone objective talking to them about them, then they end up just going round in circles. So I think a lot of us need to get out of our own heads and speak to people that have been there and done it, and that can actually give you proper advice to help you move faster, and then you're going to get there sooner than what you realize.
So if that resonates with you, click on the show notes below. Back to the episode.
Obviously, I think it just comes down to trying to figure out what is important to yourself and not be influenced by other people. Like, I don't follow too many people, and I think the danger these days is looking at stories and people's glamorized lives and seeing, but also like I humble myself because I'll go and watch content with what people are doing and they're flying on private jets and stuff. I just think, holy, like, if you want to play that game, you'll never win. Because, and I've knocked around with some people that have got helicopters and different things, and you just think, wow, there are levels to this shit, and I'm doing a lot better than I used to do. But I ain't keeping up with like no Joneses, and there's always another Joneses as well. Yeah. And I think you've got to figure out your own money personality and what makes you happy, and then be very careful that if you're, say, a spender, that you basically don't let all these big organizations just take all your cash.
Yeah. What's the joke we always make, Mike? It's always someone with a bigger super yacht.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I always say there's always someone with a bigger dick.
I think the other thing along those lines is a lot of people just go, oh, those people are way better off than we are, but you don't know how much debt they've got ticked up, how much pressure they're at home. I call the 2 a.m. piss test as well. When you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, how stressed are you thinking about work or thinking about how you're going to pay the mortgage or whatever it might be?
Yeah, and I see this a lot in business. This has probably taught me a lot too, being an accountant, because you get to see under the hood. And I used to look at people and think, oh, they would be doing really well. Just in life growing up. And now being an accountant, getting to see people's financial situations, you're sort of like, oh, wow. Okay. And I often say to business owners, visibility is a fake metric for success. Yet they might have, Botox and 50,000 subscribers and all this sort of stuff, but they're not making any money. They're not running at a profit or whatever. And like that doesn't last. Or they might owe money to the IRD or whatever it is. But I think it's so easy now to compare yourself to other people without actually understanding what's truly happening. They might be unhappy, anything like that. So that comparison and keeping up thing just is such a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, your Botox looks good though, mate.
Yeah, it does. But I think that as well, right? It's really easy to slip into that now, like you said, with the Instagram, the TikTok, the comparables. And again, it was a couple years ago, and there was like some influencer in Dubai, and she took a selfie. Someone was like, doing some work, and someone zoomed in on her emails, and it was like overdue payment, chasing her for debt and stuff. And I was like, my God, does that not just sum the whole thing up so brilliantly?
Or the industry that started popping off where you can hire a private jet for half an hour on the ground. Or it's even a photo shoot, isn't it? It's a studio.
Yeah.
And you go in and you take a picture and go, I'm on a private jet.
Yeah. I guess I probably haven't really grown up like that too. So I'd be humbled pretty quickly by my family and friends and stuff if I was probably too flashy. But I think one thing that I've learned through saving 40% of my income and stacking cash is it's really boring, and investing's boring, as you guys talk about, right? And you start to learn that, and it's very different to I've made some good cash, now I'm going to go buy this thing. You get this dopamine rush. Even, I got some shirts tailored and spent a couple of grand on that. And I'm like, the button's already fallen off that one.
Yeah.
But it was epic at the time, and this epic rush, and holy shit, I never would have afforded to do that back in the day. But you put $2,000 into a share account and you're like, cool. Okay. And then even when you start saving, a bit more, and your 40 grand goes to 50 grand, you're like, oh, yep. No, you don't go and text someone like, bro, just got to 50. This is crazy. You're like, cool, man, whatever. But you start to learn that all this emotion comes from somewhere, and we probably create it. And so given that it becomes quite boring, then I think you desensitize yourself a little bit from how important you once thought that it was, and you just focus on the journey and the process, and you put your money aside at the start as soon as you get paid, and then you're like, oh, now I wait till my next payday to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But then something pops up and you're like, oh, I can afford to kit out the podcast studio. Oh, Heartland Bank is on sale at the moment. I can buy some more and dollar cost average in or whatever it may be. But now you've got options. And I went through years of not having options because all I was doing was paying back debt. So I wasn't buying Xero shares at 60 cents when I knew I should be, because I was, paying off Westpac for the credit card that I had access to. So I've kind of taken all my old lessons and tried to flip into how can I do this a lot more sustainably.
Yeah, we might have sold him that credit card if it was a
we
while
might
back.
have.
All right, mate, you asked for it. You brought up the Heartland shares. You're saving 40% of your income. I've seen on kind of Instagram and those sort of things going, oh, crikey, it's up or it's down. Tell me, you're saving the income. What is the investment strategy? Where is the money going?
Yeah, man, I've been getting burnt. I love New Zealand businesses, so not a good time to be an NZX investor over the last 4 years. It's it's just done nothing for 4 years.
Is there still 50 of them?
So, yeah, honestly. But, I play a little bit in crypto, which I know wouldn't go down too well on that couch over there. But I want to be a part of that. I have a fund that then invests into businesses, and so that pays out a return as well. I don't, I've probably given up on continuing to get into Heartland, but I think they'll get out of the hole eventually. It's going to take some time. I've got, traditional ETF funds and things like that. I realized maybe a year or so ago, I was pretty invested and didn't really have much allocation to cash and things, and was just like, oh, okay, if something came up that was major-ish, I'd probably be like, oh, I've got to liquidate some stuff. What else do I have? Like KiwiSaver, that's over 6 figures. So the goal was to try and get it to 6 figures to let it snowball for the next 30 years of my life to see where that gets to at 65. And what else? Just trying to think what other just random like share allocations here and there, a little bit of Kiwi property, not straight into the market, but via commercial property and funds and things like that. So yeah, I probably got about 700 G's deployed into just a random assortment of things. And sometimes I am like, what am I doing? It should probably just all be straight into a very simple fund. But again, going back to what do I value? Like I like to make my decisions and then basically get the shit kicked out of me if I get them wrong and be like, okay, mate, like you just got humbled by that. What's the lesson there? And I think it might be too boring if I just went straight into a fund. But even though I know that would probably be the smarter thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Kiwi way, right? It's that DIY mentality. It's why shares is as popular it is we like control. And if it goes well done. But it's just about the risk, right? And going, are you comfortable with that risk, depending on like with all the other things that you've got going on in your space.
Yeah, and I think because I'm not, but this is I guess where my danger lies, because I'm not like, right, that money has to be allocated towards a property or whatever, then I can take a bit more risk, but I'll need to go risk off when that eventually happens so that I don't decrease the amount that could be there for a deposit or whatnot.
Yeah, and roughly what would be the split between direct shares and funds?
To be fair, it would probably only be like 80-20. So basically 80% is funds and pre-built stuff, and then 20% I'm trying to be a hero and play with.
I thought you were going to tell me 80% Heartland shares. No. Mate, that endorsement must be close with Heartland, right?
I feel like they're probably going to say, mate, you've jinxed us. Stop talking about us.
Yeah. That bit's really important to me, is having the exposure to funds opposed to the directs.
Yeah.
Directs are sexy. They're exciting. You got all these stories you can talk about with these companies at the barbecue. But I mean, you look at the stats on people who invest into direct shares and the percentage that it make any money. And funds are definitely the way to go.
Well, the very hard thing is, like, when you have money too, how do you know when to get out? You know, like I've written some up and then it's like, well, I still don't need that cash, so why do I sell? And then I watch them go all the way down. And it's like no one talks about that as well.
You mentioned 700 Gs. Impressive number. Can I just ask you, like, in terms of your thinking over time, right? So how many years ago did you have the credit card debt?
It's probably a decade. My net worth was actually probably less than a decade ago. My net worth would have been zero. And negative, actually. I was in that statistic.
So it's slowly built up from negative to positive. It's grown. At the start, when people are starting drip feeding, probably not thinking about it as much. How is your investment strategy, or how you thought about money, changed as that snowball has started to grow?
Well, if I go back through my spreadsheets, the early years was so simple. It was just literally like cash fund, some investments, some Heartland Bank. Yeah, I could do the thing in about 30 seconds. Now I'm like, now I need to open Hatch. I need to open Sharesies. I need to open my KiwiSaver. I've got that fund over there. Oh, I brought some shares in that company that my mate works at. I need to see what the share price of this. And I'm like, this is a half an hour job. It's almost becoming too much admin. But I think I've probably diversified, or probably just ended up having more available, so then starting to play or invest into different things as well. But the core of what I invest into, which is the bulk of my money, is very simple, and it's a very simple check. But I think it's like anything, once you actually have more, then you realize there's more that you could do, and then you're tempted to go down that path, and it's pretty hard to, it's like, do I really need to be doing this? And if I can see it growing or compounding, then I may have a go at it, but then there's other areas where I'm like, I'm just not into that.
Yeah.
And people have asked me to directly invest into their businesses, for example. I'm like, nah, like that's not for me. But there's others where I'm like, okay, well, but maybe in the future, but right now, no. So yeah, I think when you don't have money, like I said before, you don't have to think about this stuff. Or, if you are paying down a mortgage, like you say, it's for savings. So then it actually is simple. And everybody thinks that they want it sexy and harder. But trust me, when you've got it coming in and you've got to decide how to deploy it, there's not many people you get to have a yarn with and be like, okay, like, what are you doing? And even if you do that, you're going to run into trouble probably doing stuff you shouldn't be doing.
Last question for you, Luke. We're already a quarter of the way through 2025. You got 9 months left in the year. What does Luke Kemeys want to achieve this year?
Geez, probably just help more people get into their financial education journey and get closer towards some form of momentum that they can really see their snowball rolling through 2026. Be another big year for Next Advisory. I'm slowly kind of decreasing the amount of compliance clients that I can deal with and just helping business owners get through the rut of the recession and then start to get out the other side. But I don't really have too many like exciting things on the old goal menu anymore. I just go through the journey and cool shit happens as I go. And then what I do is I reflect back and pull out your old camera roll from a year ago, your calendar from a year ago, your emails. And then it's amazing what you've actually achieved in a 12-month window when you're doing so much stuff. But I know that if I'm directionally correct, that good things will come because I'll meet the right people, I'll help the right people, and then that will open the next door. And I can't really see what's beyond those doors until I do the work for them to then be pushed open.
Yep.
So I can't give you a definitive answer, but keep helping people and in turn it'll help me.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. And a cheeky plug for, you're out there helping people. How can people find out more about Keep the Change Next Advisory?
Yeah, keepthechange.co.nz or nextadvisory.nz or search Keep the Change across anywhere. Then you'll end up in our marketing refunnel and you won't be able to escape us.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for your time today, mate. We'll put those in the show notes as well so you can find Luke. Much love to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe to the channel. Please give us a review. Please give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.